अमेरिका है। दुनिया भर के अरबों अफराद के ख्वाबों की सरजमीन, खुद में हर रंगो नस्ल, हर मजहबो ख्याल रखने वालों को समा लेने वाला मेल्टिंग पॉट। मगर ये दस्तावेजी फिल्म इस अजीमुशान मुल्क के बारे में नहीं। ये कहानी इस सुपर पावर से 12,500 किलोमीटर दूर तीसरी दुनिया के एक मुल्क पाकिस्तान से अमेरिका में आकर आबाद होने वाली चंद औरतों की कहानी है। ये हमारी बहनों, बेटियों और माओं की कहानी है। ये सिन्फ़े नाज़ुक की शबो रोज मेहनत की कहानी है। ये कोशिश और जज्बाए तकमील का बयान है। ये औरत की अज़मत की दास्तान है। ये ख्वाबों और उनकी ताबीर की कहानी है। ये अमेरिका और इसमें दुनिया भर से आकर बसने वाले लोगों तक हमारी पहचान, हमारी शनाख्त, हमारी सफीर की कहानी है। एक औरत के मुजस्समे स्टैचू ऑफ लिबर्टी के जिक्र से जहन में उभरने वाले मुल्क अमेरिका का दारुल हुकूमत वाशिंगटन मुल्क की सियासत का तारीखी गढ़ समझा जाता है। इस सियासी मरकज में ना सिर्फ मुल्क की सियासत के ताने बाने आपस में जुड़ते हैं, बल्कि अमेरिका की खारजा पॉलिसियां भी यहीं तश्कील पाती हैं। ये शहर बिलाशुबा दुनिया में ताकत का सबसे बड़ा मरकज है। अमेरिका की अंदरूनी और बैरूनी सियासी और गैर सियासी पॉलिसियों को बनाने में अमेरिकी थिंक टैंक्स का किरदार कलीदी रहा है। ऐसे ही एक मारूफ थिंक टैंक और सियासत से जुड़ी ये पाकिस्तानी अमरीकी खातून दुनिया को अपने फहमो फरासत से हैरान करने में मसरूफ है। अमरीकी सियासी हलकों में इंतहाई काबिल एहतराम शुमाइला चौधरी अमरीका की साबिक सेक्रेटरी ऑफ स्टेट हिलरी क्लिंटन की बाएतमाद टीम मेंबर रही है। वो जनूबी एशिया से मुताल्लिक खारजा पॉलिसी की माहिर हैं और माजी में अहम ओहदों पर फाइज रही हैं। शुमाइला इन दिनों अमेरिका के एक मारूफ थिंक टैंक और तालीमी इदारे जॉन्स हॉपकिंस स्कूल ऑफ एडवांस इंटरनेशनल स्टडीज में अहम ओहदे पर फाइज हैं।
I was born in Pakistan in a small village in Punjab called Jora. And I was born in 1977, and my family had always lived in that village. We were landowners and farmers, and my parents actually were the first kind of generation in their family to go to college and graduate school. And so one of my uncles, who is a doctor, who had studied to be a doctor, went to the United States. And in 1980, he sponsored our entire family to come live in the United States. I think women in Pakistan in politics is actually a more common phenomenon than people think. My father was a lawyer in Pakistan, and he was very much involved in activism and politics at the local level. And I think that I inherited a lot of those traits, which were personality traits, and they were how he saw the world. And so it was only natural that I would gravitate towards these kinds of issues, I think. Growing up, people were looking at me and saying, well, you should just become a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer. Like that's a guaranteed career path for success, you know. And it's also they would recommend certain kinds of doctors to become because then you could have a family and you could take care of your children. So I think those were they weren't necessarily barriers or challenges, but they were perspectives that people had, and they were happy to share them, and they weren't necessarily helpful. Working at the White House in the Obama administration was the most amazing experience of my life. For me, a good job is one that is very challenging, where there's a sense of community and where you learn a lot, and there's a sense of purpose that, you know, fulfills whatever you kind of want. And so I got all of that at the White House. I first met Hillary Clinton when she started her first week at the State Department. I was invited to a briefing with her, and you know, I learned a lot from her just in that first meeting. There were a lot of bosses in the meeting, and I was one of the few desk officers they invited, and I didn't say anything because you always let your bosses talk first. And at the end, she asked me a question and said, well, what do you think about this? And I was very surprised that she was curious what I wanted to, you know, what I thought and what I wanted to say. And so I shared my opinion, and from then on, I was actually asked to go work in her office, and she appreciated kind of the candor and like straightforwardness of, and we debated, and so she appreciated different opinions. And so what I learned from her was basically that, you know, if you're actually, you know, if you speak up and you are genuine about your views, that there's space for that, right? And so it's taught me how to look at other people. I think she was very familiar with Pakistani culture and Pakistani Americans, so it was something that I didn't really have to explain, and I know that she valued it because a lot of the work I did for her was diaspora engagement, which again, I saw that she really valued the different fabrics of American life, and that made me feel good about serving in the government at that time.
बतौर पाकिस्तानी अमरीकी शुमाइला की सबसे बड़ी ख्वाहिश ये है कि वो अमरीका में पाकिस्तान के कल्चर को मुतारफ करवाएं ताकि पाकिस्तान की वो तस्वीर लोगों तक पहुंच सके जिसे वो अखबारात की सुर्खियों में देखने से कासिर हैं।
Yeah, so one thing that I thought was important to do in Washington was to show the real face of Pakistan, because the politics is just one part of the country, as in any country, right? And so this year I've started something called the Pakistan Forum, which is a series of events and art exhibitions and receptions that will focus on Pakistan from a cultural perspective and a historical angle. And the purpose is to bring in a new audience. So not just people who want to learn about why the US-Pakistan relationship got bad, but why do so many of us want to study Pakistan, and why are we so intrigued by this country that is so complex and interesting. And so this year we've had exhibits that feature the architecture of Lahore, the walled city inside Lahore. And we've also, we have had conversations on extremism, obviously, and politics. But next year we hope to do more on kind of up-and-coming Pakistani American artists, something about the pop culture of Pakistan, which I think is very interesting. And so just to show Pakistanis as real people, because that's something that's missing in Washington.
वाशिंगटन के एक और कोने में एक और पाकिस्तानी अमरीकी खातून दुनिया को अपने हुनर से एक बेहतर जगह बनाने में लगी हुई है। डॉक्टर सारा कुरैशी फैमिली मेडिसिन की माहिर और मशहूर ज़बाना अमरीकी दर्सगाह जॉर्ज टाउन यूनिवर्सिटी में असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर है। पाकिस्तानी इक़दार से जुड़ी ये खातून डॉक्टर अपने वालिदैन के वतन से मोहब्बत में मुब्तला है।
मेरे पेरेंट्स जो थे वो कराची में पैदा हुए और मेरे ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स लखनऊ से थे और पार्टीशन के बाद पाकिस्तान आए और मेरी अम्मी और अबू दोनों they went to Dow Medical College और उसके बाद अमेरिका आए ट्रेनिंग के लिए। So me, my brother and my sister पैदा हुए अमेरिका में। मेरे पूरे रिलेटिव्स पाकिस्तान कराची में थे। So growing up अमेरिका में हम हर समर कराची जाते थे और रहते थे समर के लिए कज़न्स के साथ और getting to know the community there. So that was one way. मेरी उर्दू इतनी अच्छी नहीं है, लेकिन जब मैं छोटी थी मैं बात कर सकती थी. वो जो जगह है Florida में जो मैं where I grew up, there were a few other Pakistani families. So we got together every week. We did Jummah prayers together. So ये सारी चीज़ें, I think I really felt like my Pakistani roots were carried with me to America. Being a Pakistani or being the child of Pakistani immigrants, I was pushed more than maybe some of my friends, because my parents worked really hard to get their education and move here and build a life for us. So I do think, as compared to them, I was taught to value school a lot more and do really excel at it. So a normal day for me, most importantly, is waking up with my 1.5-year-old and 3.5-year-old kids and playing with them and feeding them, and then coming to work. काम में जो मैं करती हूँ, मैं दिल से करती हूँ. I'm very lucky that I'm doing something that I love. I get to practice family medicine, where I take care of patients from newborns to geriatric, older patients, deliver babies. I see healthy patients, I see patients who are sick, so I do a little bit of everything. And besides the patient care, मैं भी थोड़ा सा teaching करती हूँ university में. So medical students or residents के साथ मैं सिखाती हूँ medicine की मामले में, लेकिन also outside of just medicine, we teach about how important environment is, and for health, how public health, we teach about health and human rights, and about how trauma can affect health. So teaching the bigger picture is what I'm really passionate about.
सारा का कहना है कि तदरीस उनकी जिंदगी है.
अच्छा लगता है, अच्छा फील करता है जब लोग मुझे रिस्पेक्ट करते हैं, और मेरे स्टूडेंट्स they look up to me. That does feel really good. But मेरे लिए what feels even better is watching them learn and getting to watch that, be a part of that process with मेरे students के साथ और मेरे patients के साथ भी.
सारा नौजवान डॉक्टरों की जानिब से अवामी फलाह के लिए कायम करदा होया क्लिनिक में निगरान की जिम्मेदारियां भी सरंजाम दे रही हैं, जहां वो अमरीकी बेघर और बेसहारा अफराद और इनके खानदानों की सेहत को बेहतर बनाने के लिए काम कर रही है.
मैं सिखाती हूँ स्टूडेंट्स ये होया क्लिनिक में. होया क्लिनिक जो है वो स्टूडेंट रन क्लिनिक है होमलेस शेल्टर में, डीसी में, और वो हम मेडिकल सर्विसेज देते हैं लोगों को जो इनके पास घर नहीं है और डॉक्टर नहीं है. हम इनको दवाई देती और मेडिकल सर्विसेज देती. सो मुझे that's one of my favorite parts of my job is working with the students there and giving that to the patients who live in the shelter, who need the medical help that they don't get anywhere else. We do asylum exams for asylum medical exams for asylum seekers here in the United States. For वो जो लोग दूसरे countries में हैं और वो safe, they're not safe in their own country and they're coming to America, we do a medical exam to help document whether there's been physical torture or psychological torture, and that becomes a part of their case to move here to America. So we started a clinic where we teach medical students how to do those exams also. And I think it's really important to teach students about human rights as it relates to health, so that's a big part of what we do also.
सारा माजी में एक बेहतरीन एथलीट भी रह चुकी हैं और इनकलाब ईरान के बाद ईरान में अमेरिका की नुमाइंदगी करने वाली पहली खातून एथलीट होने का एजाज भी रखती हैं. सारा कुरैशी पाकिस्तान समेत दुनिया के कई ममालिक के दूर उफ्तादा इलाकों में लोगों को सेहत की बुनियादी सहूलियात पहुंचाने के लिए कोशां और इंसानी हुकूक की अलमबरदार रही है।
What helps me be a success, and I think a lot of my friends who are, Pakistani American women who are working mothers here or even at home, is having a supportive husband at home. And I'm really lucky that I have a husband who fully supports my career. I'm able to work even though I have 2 young kids, and it's because we have that understanding and that support. वो ख़वातीन जो कुछ goal की, if they were trying to reach for a certain goal in their career, I would just say, first make sure you love what you're doing, because I think that will carry you the farthest.
वॉशिंगटन में एक जंग में काम आने वाली नर्सों के मुजस्समों में सारा और उन जैसी औरतों की झलक है जो अपने आराम और सुकून को भुलाकर लोगों की मदद के लिए हर हद उबूर करने को तैयार रहती है। अमरीकी रियासत इलिनॉय के शहर शिकागो में अपने 3 बच्चों और शोहर के साथ मुकीम ये बापर्दा खातून भी एक जंग का हिस्सा है। नादिया मुहाजिर की ये जंग खवातीन के साथ ऐसे सुलूक के खिलाफ है जो उनकी तौलीदी सेहत पर असरअंदाज होता है। नादिया हार्ट विमेन एंड गर्ल्स नामी एक इदारे की बानी और सरबराह है। ये इदारा अमेरिका में अकलीती खवातीन को बिलउमूम और मुस्लिम खवातीन को बिलखुसूस सेहत और तौलीदी सेहत की तालीम फराहम करता है, उन्हें उनके हुकूक समझाता है।
मैं फाउंडर और एग्जीक्यूटिव डायरेक्टर हूँ हार्ट, जो एक नेशनल नॉन प्रॉफिट है, और हम लोग विमेन की रिप्रोडक्टिव हेल्थ इश्यूज़ देखते हैं और सेक्सुअल वायलेंस की अवेयरनेस करते हैं। एंड हम लोग अभी 8 साल पहले शुरू किया था हम लोग ने, और अब हमारे पास 4 स्टाफ हैं और मोर देन 22 ट्रेनर्स। और हम लोग यहाँ पे शिकागो में काम करते हैं, वाशिंगटन डीसी में काम करते हैं और लॉस एंजलिस में काम करते हैं, और फिर जो बुलाते हैं हम लोग को दूसरे सिटीज़ में, वहाँ पे भी हम लोग ट्रैवल करते हैं। We work a lot with Muslim women and girls to educate them about the various reproductive and sexual health needs that they may have. We first and foremost teach them about their bodies. A lot of times they did not receive that kind of education in school, and so it's important for them to even know about their bodies, about their menstrual cycle, about ovulation, how pregnancy happens, how to have a healthy pregnancy. And then after that, we also teach them about keeping up with their reproductive health. हमारा काम बहुत controversial है। बहुत लोग तो support भी करते हैं और कहते हैं कि हम लोग बहुत सारा इंतज़ार कर रहे थे इस काम के लिए, और इतने सारे साल हम लोग we suffered silently about these issues, or finally someone is talking about them openly. लेकिन फिर हम लोग को बहुत सारी backlash भी मिलती है कि इसके बारे में क्यों बात कर रहे हो, और ये इस्लामिक नहीं है, ये मुसलमान नहीं है, तुम you're a fake Muslim, और you're corrupting our young people and brainwashing them.
ये तालीम हर औरत के लिए जरूरी है, मगर कुछ फिरकों और मुआशरों की तंग नजरी औरत को इस हक से दूर रखती है, जो बाद अजान नुकसानात का बायस बनता है।
This kind of education is very necessary for all communities, not just in Pakistan, but in Pakistan as well, where there is so much silence and shame around some of these issues, especially, for example, breast cancer. Breast cancer is a very common type of cancer. It's also preventable. It's also, I don't want to say preventable, I want to say treatable. And also, if you do get regular screenings, it is preventable, or you can catch it early, and so it can save lives. So it's absolutely important for Pakistani communities to start talking about these in a way that's open, but also I understand that there is cultural norms around modesty and privacy, and there's absolutely ways to talk about these issues and still maintain that adab. So a good day for us at Heart is when we know that we have helped even just one woman, right? And so sometimes that's somebody that we've seen in person, and they come back to us and they tell us that we are now safe in our home because we were able to safely leave our abusive marriage. Or they say that because of you, I now feel like I have more information about my body and I feel healthy, and that I can make informed decisions about my reproductive health. On a bad day is when we can't help the women that have come to us because of the systems and the barriers that they face in order to get that help. So they might want to leave an abusive marriage, but their parents and their in-laws are shaming them for leaving them.
ख़वातीन की सेहत के मामले में अदम मसावात पर नादिया की आवाज एक दिया है जो कई जिंदगियों में उजाला फैला चुका है और फैला रहा है।
I owe my success to a lot of different people, but first and foremost to God. Then, of course, I would say my family, my parents who provided me with everything and more than I could imagine. And then having a husband who is equally as supportive, and in-laws who are supportive, and then really great, easy children. So I owe my success to that. And then also just my staff. My staff is also very, very fantastic and very supportive as well. And so we kind of support each other in the work that we do.
दुनिया भर से आए हुए तारकीन के लिए ख्वाबों की सरजमीन में तरक्की की मनाजिल तय करना बज़ाहिर तो खासा आसान दिखाई देता है, मगर हकीकत ये है कि हर शोबे में सख्त मुकाबले की इस फजा में शोहरत के आसमान को छूना किसी किसी को ही नसीब होता है। मगर वाशिंगटन से 440 मील दूर बोस्टन, मैसाचुसेट्स में दुनिया की साइंस की सबसे मारूफ दर्सगाह MIT में एक पाकिस्तानी औरत शोहरत के आसमानों से आगे निकलकर नई दुनियाओं की तस्खीर में मसरूफ है। नरगिस मावलवाला एक पारसी पाकिस्तानी अमरीकी साइंसदान हैं जिन्होंने एक तारीख साज ईजाद और फिर एक अहद साज दरियाफ्त करके अपने इदारे और पाकिस्तान का नाम रोशन किया है।
I grew up in Karachi all the way through high school. So I was a student at the Convent of Jesus and Mary. And that was actually quite an interesting way to grow up. So I was, I was part of a Zoroastrian family. I went to Catholic school and I lived in this predominantly Muslim country. And so it gave me a lot of appreciation for difference. One of my formative experiences when I was growing up in Karachi, probably around age 10, was I inherited a bicycle. So I inherited this bicycle that was kind of a wreck. But it was also sort of my ticket to freedom, because if I had a bicycle, I could kind of move around the city more easily, more or less unknown to my parents, of course. And so I learned to repair this bicycle at a bicycle shop right near the apartment buildings where I grew up. And this, what I learned, this happened over many, many years. It wasn't just a single event where I'd go there and I'd hang out and I'd be repairing something on my own bicycle and he'd show me how to do it. And then eventually it kind of became this arrangement where if I wanted something, like if I needed a new tube or a new valve, I obviously didn't have money to pay him. So he would let me repair another bicycle that had come into the shop as kind of a barter system. And that was kind of, next door to this bicycle wala was an electrician who also did a lot of electrical work in our apartment, so I knew him a little bit. And so I learned how to do some electronics from him, fixing bike lamps and stuff. And I'm always struck by that, because it kind of is a constant reminder to me that, we always think of education as this formal process of going to school and being taught by stern teachers. And that's all true and also very important, but just as important is the education we get completely outside of school from doing things. And in fact, for me, it was a very important thing, because later in life, and to this day, I'm an experimentalist, I'm a physicist, so I obviously had to study formal physics and math and so on. But as you can see from my lab, I build things. And that passion began early on by doing silly things like repairing bikes. So I would say a great deal of my sort of ability to go into things that may have been considered unreasonable for a girl to go into came from my parents. They really were of the kind that, they had 2 daughters and their daughters were going to do anything that, anyone else's son could do. And that really, as part of the family ethos, it really comes across, right? When you grew up with that kind of message all your life, it wasn't even odd. I didn't even think, I'm a girl and therefore I shouldn't. I was just like, I want to do this and so I will. So, I think I think the answer to this idea of, can girls do absolutely anything? The answer is absolutely yes, as long as they have the impression that they can. Teaching at MIT is a dream job, and it's a dream job because of the way in which resources are available to you. And I don't mean resources, it's a wealthy university and I have lots of nice lab spaces you can see, etc. But the most important resource we have at MIT is actually our students.
MIT के शोबा तिब्बियात की एसोसिएट हेड डॉक्टर नरगिस ग्रेविटेशनल वेव्स को नापने वाला आला बनाने वाली टीम का अहम हिस्सा है। यह हैरत अंगेज आला 4 किलोमीटर लंबा और इंतहाई हसास है।
Humans have always looked out at the sky, right? And what do we see? We see little twinkling stars. And what is that? That's light. That's light from the stars. And if you look into the universe, you will notice through various methods that there are many things that are dark. They don't give off light, and yet they are very important building blocks of the universe. So black holes are a good example. They're black because they have so much gravity that they don't give off light, and yet they're really important. If you try to build the universe we see around us, you can't do that without black holes. So we know they're an important building block of the universe. And there's no easy way to see black holes except through their gravity, which is through gravitational waves. So that's sort of the motivations for detecting these gravitational waves. So that was the idea behind it and why one should do it. We just made these discoveries for the first time in the past 2 years. If you fast forward 100 years ahead and say, what was this useful for? Well, no one has the perfect crystal ball, but I'll give you my take on it. So I think there'll be a few things that will be remembered. So the first thing that will be remembered is is that this is a new kind of telescope. And in the 100 years that have passed, probably we will make discoveries of things in the sky that we just didn't know existed. And that's been true every time we've turned on a new, bigger, better telescope. Humans have discovered things that we couldn't see with our eyes. So that's really the first piece of it. The second piece of it, but that in itself, that just teaches us about the history and future of the universe. Only small questions. But the other piece of it is that to make such a precise measurement, we've had to develop many, many technologies. And some of these technologies are already in use well outside of these gravitational wave detectors. But the direct beauty is we are going to learn things about the universe we did not know.
नरगिस मावलवाला की दरियाफ्त करदा ग्रेविटेशनल वेव्स कायनात की पैदाइश और दीगर अहम राजों से पर्दा उठाने में मददगार साबित होगी। डॉक्टर मावलवाला की खिदमात को सराहते हुए साबिक वजीर आजम मोहम्मद नवाज शरीफ ने उन्हें पाकिस्तानी तुलबा और साइंसदानों के लिए रोल मॉडल करार दिया। लोगों की जिंदगियां बेहतर बनाने की बात हो तो एक और पाकिस्तानी अमरीकी खातून का जिक्र जरूरी है। कुलसूम लाखानी वाशिंगटन में मुकीम हैं और इन्वेस्ट टू इनोवेट नामी एक इदारे की बानी और सीईओ हैं। यह इदारा पाकिस्तान और तीसरी दुनिया के दीगर ममालिक के ज़हीन और गैर मामूली कारोबारी सोच के मालिक नौजवानों को ट्रेनिंग और सरमायाकारी के मौके फराहम करता है ताकि वो वसाइल की कमी के बायस दुनिया को अपना हुनर दिखाने से कासिर न रह जाएं।
I came to America when I was 18 years old, पढ़ाई के लिए. And when I graduated, I decided to work here in the United States. लेकिन मेरे दिल पाकिस्तान में थी, so it was interesting, like having one foot still in Pakistan. I wanted to actually still do things as a Pakistani living here that supported my home country. So while I was working, I started a blog called Chup, or Changing Up Pakistan. And my blog was really covering current affairs of Pakistan itself, also doing analysis, but also covering jo filmmakers, change makers, artists. Sab Pakistan mein, I was trying to cover the stories of all those amazing people in order to showcase a better picture of Pakistan that was here in America, since everyone still to this day thinks Pakistan is, you know, the land of Osama bin Laden and terrorism and things like that. And so as I was covering all these amazing people, I was realizing there was so much potential in Pakistan, especially because there's so many young people in the country, and yet that potential is very much, it's not something that's necessarily at the time. A lot of those young people would come up with these great ideas and there was no support system for them. So about 6.5 years ago, 2011, I decided to start my company Invest to Innovate, or I2I, which is not a Tahir Shah song. It's also Invest to Innovate, which is trying to support young entrepreneurs जो पाकिस्तान में हैं लेकिन अभी हम नेपाल में काम करते हैं. We're also looking at working in, we've worked in Bangladesh before, and really looking at like entrepreneurs that are in these growth frontier markets and what are we doing to actually support their growth and turning those businesses into success stories.
आई टू आई गैर मुल्की और मुल्की सरमायाकारों को नौजवानों के आइडियाज पर सरमायाकारी करने के लिए कायल करता है।
Every day it's different, right? Because we have a program that works with entrepreneurs in Pakistan that we've been running since 2011. We've graduated 35 companies since 2011. We also work with entrepreneurs across the country. We're in the middle of launching an investment fund, inshallah, for young entrepreneurs in Pakistan. And so every day is different when I'm on the ground in Pakistan, whether it means we're working on our program and I'm working with our startups, whether it means I'm attending meetings, whether it means we're actually just getting the work done. When I'm in the United States, it's basically the same thing, but I'm working on Pakistan time zone, which means I'm waking up really early and staying up really late. I also have a lot of meetings and our clients and our partners that are here in the US. So every day is really different, I think, but oftentimes it's just, you just, as an entrepreneur, it's every day can be different, and I think that's kind of the fun part of running your own company.
कुलसूम की ख्वाहिश है कि पाकिस्तान के जवानों और मर्दों खवातीन को तरक्की के वही मौके मुयस्सर आएं जो उनको अमेरिका में मिले हैं।
Yeah, I think काफ़ी फ़र्क है between amongst our entrepreneurs, right? Which I think is the beauty of, for those of us in Pakistan, you know, those of us who work with entrepreneurs in Pakistan, I think the beauty of what we do is that if you have a great idea, it doesn't matter if you are a LUMS graduate or if you come from, you know, Sadiqabad or if you come from Sialkot or Peshawar, right? It doesn't matter if your Urdu is better than your English. For us, what's really important is if you have a great idea and if you have the determination to build an amazing business, then we want to work with you, right? And I think the amazing thing about entrepreneurship is it can be a great equalizer, right? So we've definitely had kids that have gone to LUMS. We've had kids that have graduated from Karachi Grammar School, HSN, some of the best schools in Pakistan, and we have kids that have literally come from tier 2, tier 3 cities. You know, their communication skills are relatively, they could be improved upon, but they have the grit and the determination that's needed to turn their businesses into success stories, and that's what we love, right?
कुलसूम पाकिस्तानी खवातीन पर नाज़ा हैं और उन्हें बिजनेस के मैदान में आगे बढ़ता देखने की ख्वाहिशमंद हैं।
I often think that, you know, my confidence comes honestly from the fact that I was raised by an incredible family that allowed me to explore and to see things. And I think that a lot of times what we see, जो हमारे program में पाकिस्तान में, हमारे IDO Accelerator में, it's actually like an amazing program that we watch these, especially since we've had 60% of our companies have been female-led businesses, right? So you watch all these women that come into the program, coming from everywhere in Pakistan. Some of them are single mothers, some of them are, you know, engineers, rocket scientists, whatever. But we watch this confidence happen as a result of not only being part of this program, because we do so much work of making them just, you know, so much leadership development work, but also just the ability for them to be able to build this family with each other and how they rely on each other. And I think it's really important when you have a business to feel confident about what you're doing, because if you meet investors care about that. They want to know that you are confident in what you believe in, that you have determination, that you have, you know, that there's force and strength behind what you're saying. And I honestly, the Pakistani women that I know are some of the most confident, strongest women that I've ever met. And so the ability to work with them and also see that growth is incredible too.
कुलसूम का मानना है कि मुश्किलात और नाकामी से घबराने वाले जीत का मजा नहीं ले पाते।
I think failure, oftentimes we see failure as an end, right? And Pakistan, हमारे culture में, we see literally failure is like this stop, and then after that, failure के बाद there's nothing else. You just go back and you work in a job or whatever. What I think is that failure is a means to an end, right? You have to, failure, if we see it not as the end itself, but how we learn from it in order to do other things, then it changes the way that we view failure altogether, right? So if I talked about my own experience, Eye to Eye has been a series of failures, right? I've made so many mistakes in the last 6.5 years of building this business, so many things that I wish I did better. But if I saw failure as an end, this company would have ended a year, like 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, yesterday. But I think the more that we view failure as, what do I learn from this? How can I be better? That's how we actually go on and progress and actually be better, not only as businesses and entrepreneurs, but also as human beings as well.
ये अजीम औरतें अपनी हिम्मत और मुस्तकिल मिजाजी से ये साबित कर रही हैं कि औरत किसी मर्द से कम नहीं, और लगन और जज्बा हो तो वो कुछ भी कर सकती हैं। ये पाकिस्तानी अमरीकी खवातीन हमारे लिए मशाले राह हैं। इन सब खवातीन ने तालीम और खुद एतमादी के जेवर से खुद को आरास्ता करके अपनी और दूसरों की जिंदगियां तब्दील की। हमें इन पाकिस्तानी बेटियों पर फख्र है कि ये सब हमारी शान बढ़ा रही हैं, पाकिस्तान का मान बढ़ा रही हैं।